There's a moment when you catch yourself in the mirror and immediately look away. When you delete a text 3 times before sending it because nothing sounds right. When you apologize for taking up space in rooms you have every right to be in. I used to think this was just being humble, being realistic about my flaws, being considerate of others who were clearly more deserving than I was. But I've learned something that changes everything. The voice that tells you you're not worthy of love isn't protecting you from disappointment. It's stealing the very connections your soul was designed to experience. I'm Harmony Ziba, and I spent 30 years believing that love was something I had to earn through perfection, something that would arrive only after I fixed every broken piece of myself. I became an expert at shrinking, at making myself smaller so others could feel bigger, at accepting crumbs of affection while convincing myself I was grateful. The turning point came when I realized I wasn't just rejecting others' love. I was teaching them exactly how little I believed I deserved. Today, we're going to reverse that programming and discover why self-rejection is the cruelest form of self-sabotage, and how transforming it unlocks not just love from others, but the fierce, unshakable love you've been withholding from yourself. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to explore something that could fundamentally change how you move through the world. Not because I have some magical formula, but because neuroscience has finally given us the map to understand why self-rejection feels so automatic and how we can consciously choose self-acceptance instead. We're going to discover why your brain defaults to self-criticism, how this pattern was installed without your permission, and most importantly, how to rewrite the story you tell yourself about your own lovability. The first thing you need to understand is that self-rejection isn't a character flaw. It's a learned survival strategy. Somewhere in your past, your brilliant mind decided that if you rejected yourself first, it would hurt less when others inevitably did the same. If you pointed out your flaws before anyone else could, if you made yourself small enough, if you never asked for too much or expected too much, maybe you could avoid the devastating pain of being unwanted. This strategy worked, in a way. It protected you from the immediate sting of disappointment. But it came with a hidden cost that compounds daily. You stopped allowing yourself to be fully seen, fully known, fully loved. You became so skilled at anticipating rejection that you began creating it, pushing away the very connections you craved because they felt too risky, too vulnerable, too likely to end in pain. Recent studies from Stanford University's Social Neuroscience Lab reveal something profound about how self-rejection operates in the brain. When we engage in self-critical thoughts, the same neural networks activate as when we experience physical pain. Your brain literally cannot distinguish between the ache of a broken bone and the ache of telling yourself you're not enough. This isn't metaphorical. Self-rejection creates actual neurological distress. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The research shows that people who practice self-compassion have measurably different brain activity in the areas associated with emotional regulation and stress response. Their amygdala, the brain's alarm system, shows less reactivity to perceived threats. Their prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thinking, remains more active during difficult emotions. Self-acceptance isn't just a nice idea, it's actual neural rewiring that changes how you process your entire emotional experience. Instead of treating this with the same compassion you'd show a friend, your inner critic immediately jumps in with harsh commentary. This criticism creates shame, which makes you want to hide or withdraw, which then confirms the original belief that you're somehow defective. It's a cycle that can spiral within seconds and leave you feeling isolated and unlovable. Understanding this pattern is crucial because it reveals something most people never realize. Self-rejection isn't based on truth about your lovability. It's based on faulty data processing. Your brain is interpreting normal human imperfection as evidence that you're fundamentally flawed, when in reality, your imperfections are exactly what make you relatable, authentic, and worthy of connection. I need you to hear something that might challenge everything you've believed about earning love. You were born worthy. Not worthy because of your potential. Not worthy because of what you might accomplish. Not worthy because you're a good person. You were worthy the moment you drew your first breath, before you ever did anything right or wrong, before you ever pleased or disappointed anyone. Worthiness isn't an achievement, it's your birthright. The voice that tells you otherwise isn't your voice. It's a collection of every harsh word that was ever spoken to you, every time you were made to feel like you weren't enough, every message that convinced you love was conditional on your performance. These voices became so familiar that you started believing they were your own thoughts, your own assessment of your value. But they were never yours to begin with. Now I want to take you through what I call the 4 recognitions of self-acceptance. These aren't just concepts to understand, they're experiences to embody. Each recognition builds upon the last, creating a foundation of self-love that becomes unshakable with practice. This isn't about convincing yourself of something that isn't true. It's about remembering something that has always been true, but was temporarily forgotten. The first recognition: I am worthy of love exactly as I am. Place your hand over your heart right now and feel it beating. This heart has been loving you unconditionally since before you were born. It doesn't judge your mistakes, criticize your appearance, or withhold its rhythm when you fall short of your goals. Your heart knows something your mind has forgotten. You are lovable not because of what you do, but because of who you are at your essence. Close your eyes and imagine speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a beloved child who came to you feeling unworthy of love. What would you say? How would your voice sound? What would your expression convey? That tenderness, that immediate rushing to reassure and comfort, that's the energy of true love, and you deserve to receive it from yourself first and most consistently. Speak these words out loud with me. I am worthy of love exactly as I am. My worthiness doesn't depend on my achievements, my appearance, or my ability to please others. I am worthy because I exist, because I am a unique expression of life itself, because my heart beats with the same rhythm that moves mountains and creates galaxies. Notice what happens in your body when you speak these words. Does your chest tighten? Does your mind immediately jump to all the reasons this isn't true? That's normal. Your self-rejection patterns have been practiced for years. They're not going to dissolve overnight. But every time you choose to speak words of worthiness instead of words of criticism, you're creating new neural pathways, building new patterns of self-relationship. The second recognition: I am learning to love my imperfections. Your flaws aren't obstacles to love, they're invitations to deeper connection. Every person who has ever truly loved you has loved you not despite your imperfections, but including them. Place both hands on your chest and breathe deeply. With each exhale, release the pressure to be perfect. With each inhale, breathe in acceptance for all parts of yourself, the parts you're proud of and the parts you're still learning to embrace. Say with me, I am learning to love my imperfections. They don't make me unlovable. They make me human. They don't disqualify me from connection. They create opportunities for deeper intimacy with those who can see and accept all of me. This doesn't mean becoming complacent or stop growing. It means loving yourself in process, celebrating progress over perfection, treating yourself with the same patience you'd show a dear friend who was learning something new. Growth that comes from self-love is sustainable and joyful. Growth that comes from self-rejection is exhausting and temporary. The third recognition: I am releasing others' opinions as my truth. One of the cruelest aspects of self-rejection is how it makes you dependent on external validation while simultaneously believing you don't deserve it. You wait for others to tell you you're valuable while secretly convinced they'll eventually discover you're not. This creates an impossible situation where you need approval but can't fully receive it when it comes. Here's something that changed everything for me. Other people's opinions of you are about them, not you. They're filtered through their own experiences, their own insecurities, their own capacity for love and acceptance. Someone who is harsh with you is usually harsh with themselves. Someone who can't see your worth often struggles to see their own. Their opinion doesn't determine your value any more than a broken thermometer determines the actual temperature. This doesn't mean becoming dismissive of feedback or closing yourself off from others' perspectives. It means recognizing that while others' opinions can provide useful information, they cannot and should not determine your fundamental sense of worth. You are not a democracy where everyone gets to vote on your value. You are a sovereign being whose worthiness is inherent and unchangeable. Take a moment to think of someone whose opinion has too much power over how you feel about yourself. Now imagine placing their opinion in a beautiful box and setting it aside, not in anger, but in loving detachment. Say with me, I am releasing others' opinions as my truth. I value feedback and connection, but I do not need external validation to know my worth. My value is inherent, constant, and independent of anyone else's ability to see it. Feel the freedom in this recognition. Notice how much mental and emotional energy you've been spending trying to manage others' perceptions of you. What becomes possible when you redirect that energy toward knowing and expressing your authentic self instead? The fourth recognition: I am choosing self-compassion over self-criticism. This might be the most transformative recognition of all. Every moment of every day, you have a choice. You can speak to yourself with the voice of criticism or the voice of compassion. You can be your own worst enemy or your own best friend. You can tear yourself down or lift yourself up. This choice determines not just how you feel about yourself, but how you show up in the world and what kind of relationships you create. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence or making excuses for harmful behavior. It's treating yourself with the same kindness you would show a good friend who was struggling. It's acknowledging your pain without amplifying it with judgment. It's recognizing your mistakes without defining yourself by them. It's speaking to yourself in a way that actually motivates positive change rather than paralyzing you with shame. When you notice the voice of self-criticism arising, and you will, because old patterns don't disappear overnight, pause and ask yourself, what would I say to someone I love who is experiencing this? Then say that to yourself instead. Replace "I'm so stupid" with "I made a mistake, and that's how I learn." Replace "I'm not good enough" with "I'm doing my best with the resources I have right now." Place your hands over your heart in a gesture of self-comfort. This physical action activates your parasympathetic nervous system and releases oxytocin, the same hormone that's released during loving connection with others. You can literally give yourself the chemical experience of being loved. Say with me, I am choosing self-compassion over self-criticism. I speak to myself with kindness. I treat my struggles with tenderness. I am both my own student and my own teacher, learning to love myself with patience and grace. These 4 recognitions work together to create a new foundation for how you relate to yourself. But recognitions alone aren't enough. They need to be supported by daily practices that reinforce these new patterns until they become your automatic response. This is where the real transformation happens, in the small, consistent choices to treat yourself with love. The first practice is what I call the morning self-love declaration. Before you check your phone, before you get caught up in the day's demands, spend 2 minutes connecting with your inherent worth. Look in the mirror and say, "Good morning. I love you. Today I choose to treat you with kindness. You are worthy of good things." This isn't about feeling confident or perfect. It's about establishing a loving tone for how you'll treat yourself throughout the day. The second practice is the mistake reframe protocol. When you make a mistake or fall short of your expectations, instead of immediately jumping to self-criticism, pause and say, "I'm learning. This mistake doesn't define me. It informs me. I'm human, and humans learn through experience. I forgive myself and choose to do better next time." This interrupts the shame spiral before it can gain momentum. The third practice is what I call love letter therapy. Once a week, write yourself a love letter, as if you're writing to someone you adore who is struggling with self-doubt. Include everything you appreciate about yourself, all the challenges you've overcome, all the growth you've experienced. Keep these letters and read them whenever the voice of self-rejection gets loud. Let your own words remind you of your worth. The fourth practice is boundary setting with your inner critic. You don't have to listen to every thought that crosses your mind. When you notice harsh self-talk, you can literally say, "Thank you for sharing, but I'm not available for criticism right now. I'm choosing love instead." Treat your inner critic like an uninvited guest. Acknowledge its presence, but don't let it take over your house. The neuroscience behind these practices is remarkable. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with emotional regulation and stress resilience. Dr. Kristen Neff's research at the University of Texas shows that people who practice self-compassion have lower levels of anxiety and depression, greater motivation to improve themselves, and better relationships with others. But the benefits go beyond mental health. When you stop rejecting yourself, you stop teaching others to reject you too. You set a different standard for how you expect to be treated. You stop accepting relationships where you have to shrink or perform or prove your worth. You start attracting people who can love you as you are, because you're finally loving yourself as you are. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it's not linear. You'll have days when self-rejection feels overwhelming, when the old voices seem louder than the new ones you're cultivating. This doesn't mean you're failing or that the practices don't work. It means you're human, and humans heal in layers, in spirals, in their own perfect timing. On the difficult days, remember that every moment is a new opportunity to choose differently. You don't have to wait until tomorrow to start treating yourself with kindness. You don't have to earn the right to self-compassion through perfect behavior. You can begin again right now, in this breath, with this choice to speak to yourself with love. Thank you for spending these 20 minutes opening your heart to the possibility of loving yourself. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a new relationship with the most important person in your life, you. Subscribe for more transformative content, and remember, your worthiness isn't a question to be answered. It's a truth to be remembered. In our next video, we'll explore how to maintain self-love when the world tries to convince you otherwise. Every moment you choose self-acceptance over self-rejection, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing the world. Start with the next breath you take, and make it a breath of love for the magnificent being you are.